everything changes, and growth is staying on top of the change to be able to master it. Your profession, your personal life, whatever. And we're seeing that in AI now.
Yeah.
That presents opportunities for people, but the reality is a lot of people can't handle the change so fast
Mhm.
because you need to reinvent yourself, whatever you're doing all the time. It's a constant reinvention. And I personally believe this is causing the rapid growth of change is causing a lot of issues within society.
Welcome back to the Perpetual Growth Podcast, where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that empower you to grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your health. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. I'm your host, Zach Palmer, and today I'm honored to sit down with a true veteran of the financial trenches, Jack Miller. Jack is the president of Gelt Financial, a non-bank lender that's been helping investors, borrowers, and entrepreneurs secure capital since the late 1980s. With over 30 years in commercial real estate, distressed debt, private lending, and creative deal structures, Jack's seen more market cycles than most people read about. But what makes this conversation powerful isn't just the deals, it's the depth. Jack is battle-tested, principle-driven, and passionate about using his platform to serve, to mentor, and to leave a legacy of good. Whether you're in real estate, lending, or just navigating your own path through business and adversity, this episode is going to shift your mindset, sharpen your strategy, and maybe even soften your heart. Let's dive in. Jack, welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast.
Zach, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for that fantastic introduction to the audience. I did not give Zach any money or bribes to get that. He did it on his own. And Zach, I have to tell you, you've had such an amazing background. I'm so excited to be with you and your audience today. So I'm really thrilled about it.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. Well, the feeling's mutual. And my audience knows I always like to start with this question because I think it reveals a lot about who someone really is. I mean, at least at this stage in life, what does growth mean to you right now in this season of your life?
Yeah, I think it's very important because, you mentioned the season of my life. The reality is I'm 63 years old. I've had majority of my life in the back behind me. Growth to me at this point is not so much financial growth, it's personal growth, and it's putting my capabilities to help other people through charitable work, through ending hate, through stopping suicide, all kinds of other charitable things that I'm involved with. But look, we're always growing. Even at 63, and I've been doing this since I've been 18 or 19, I'm still learning, and because the business and everything reinvents themselves. The climate we're in today in 2025, everything moves so fast. Technology moves so fast, everything. So you need to keep staying on top of the game. It's funny. I happened to watch a TV show last night, and it was an older TV show, and they talked about fax machines. And in my head, I'm thinking, I remember when fax machines came out. I opened the business 1989, and it was about that time that fax machines came out. I was so excited to buy our first fax machine. It was a game changer. Now, I don't even think they sell fax machines. No, probably people don't even know what a fax is. So everything changes, and growth is staying on top of the change to be able to master it. Your profession, your personal life, whatever. And we're seeing that in AI now.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. I was driving down the road with my kids. I think we were on the way home from a soccer game or soccer practice or something a couple of days ago, and that one of those same those moments dawned on me as we were driving. I don't remember what inspired it exactly, but I was like, I remember when my dad was driving our suburban home, and he had just loaded in the 5 or 6 disc compact CD
Yeah,
player underneath the seat, and it was like the coolest thing ever that you could not only put one disc in the dash but have 6 more loaded. Now, now if you have a CD player in your car, the car's dated.
100%. So things are changing.
Yeah.
That presents opportunities for people, but the reality is a lot of people can't handle the change so fast
Mhm.
because you need to reinvent yourself, whatever you're doing all the time. It's a constant reinvention. And I personally believe this is causing the rapid growth of change is causing a lot of issues within society.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but again, who knows?
Yeah, bottom of the bell curve. One of my Two of my mentors, I frequently hear them saying now, because I mean, obviously AI is a hot topic of conversation for, well, just about everybody. If it's not, it should be, because what I love what they're saying. They're like, AI is not here to replace jobs. AI is going to replace jobs for people that don't know how to use it properly. So we need to become educated in the tools to be able to take advantage, because it is making things exponentially easier. If you're not leveraging it, you're going to fall behind the next guy that knows how to use it just as well, if not exponentially faster. Jack, one thing I would love to dive into. I mean, I want to get into a little bit of your story history, talk a bit about your charitable organization. But one of the things that comes to my mind that I think every listener could benefit from. And I love that you led off with this, is you said, right now this season of life is not about money. And I think just about everyone would agree, at least if they're being honest with themselves, that financial strain is probably one of the greatest stressors in any individual's life. I mean, we have all these quips and anecdotes and quotes about not needing money, and so, but the reality is having money makes life easier. And one of my firm beliefs is, the more you make, the more you also have the ability to contribute, which, what a beautiful gift. So, I mean, it's our responsibility to earn more so that we can give back more. But on that same note, we don't often start there. And oftentimes we go through seasons where we may have an abundance of money, and then we have absolutely none. Some people didn't have maybe that severity of, so struggle in their cycles of earnings. But did you ever have a time where, money wasn't necessarily abundant, or was virtually gone altogether? And was that coming off a season of having a lot and then back into a little, then back into a lot? If you could talk to the audience about some of those journeys, I think it's so important for people to understand the mindset, the tools, how you guided yourself through such a painful situation.
Absolutely. And for so I started, so let me give you a little background, but I didn't always I always wasn't comfortable with money. In fact, the most of my life I was up at nights worrying about money, and half of that time I was in the men's room because I have a bad stomach. So it ate my kish gazelle money. I have three kids. Now they're not kids, they're men, but I raised three kids. I did it all. I didn't come from money. I didn't inherit any money. So I'll give you a little of my background, and I'll go through, and I'll very quickly, then I'll get to the point of when I really suffered with money and how I dealt with it. I was born in Philadelphia in 1962, and I had dyslexia. I still have dyslexia. Um, and when I was growing up, the Philadelphia schools, no one really knew how to deal with dyslexia. They called it brain damage. And
Right.
I had a paper from the Philadelphia school district that said I'm brain damage. So that was the context that I grew up. Everything was hard for me. Going to school was very hard. Going to college was impossible. But I had an inner desire to not suffer the way my father suffered with money. I saw how my father would work. He literally worked 7 days a week. He was up every night worrying about it. My father was the hardest working guy, and I wanted to do something. So I didn't have any formal education. I really, today, spell check has been an unbelievable godsend for people with dyslexia. But before spell check, people thought I was just a mess. So, but I had the desire and I had the ability to work 24/7. And I have the ability, every time I've been punched in my face, I had the ability to get up. I cry for a little bit, but I heal my black and blue and I get up and I'm fighting. So I sold pretzels, I sold coins, I stood on the corners of Philadelphia. Literally, I remember buses passing me by. The people would spit on you while you're selling pretzels. And it worked. I made $3 on a Sunday. The following week, I talked a friend of mine into selling pretzels under me, and I split the profit. So I always had like an entrepreneurial side of me. I got married, and my wife gets all the credit for everything. She gave me the encouragement. I started a business, but it was tough. I started a business. I had three kids. Making payroll is tough. In our business, we're in the lending business. It's extremely cyclical. One day, everything was great. So, give you an example. I started in 1989, February 1st, 1989. I started Gelt Financial, and in '98, the economy crashed. At the time, I had five offices. My fixed expenses about three or 400,000 a month, and this is back in '98, a long time ago. We had over 50 people, and within a 24-hour period, everything changed. I had to shut down the offices. I think out of the 50 people, I laid off. I think we had like 55 or 58. I think I laid off like 50 of them. It was terrible. It was beyond. I rebuilt. I rebuilt. I rebuilt again. So we bought a bank. I had rebuilt the company even bigger and better than before. In 2008 to 2011, they had what's called the Great Recession, and that was really bad. I literally, it was a total financial mess. We had 50% of our borrowers in default. I was on default on loan after loan, not because we weren't paying them. We were paying them fine because the banks put me in technical default. The government went after me because I bought a bank. We bought one of the smallest banks in the country, and they went after me, and they're still going after me. It was really, really bad. But somehow I was able to keep it together, and I was able to rebuild the business again. So each time I was knocked down, I was able to rebuild the business. So the irony, how low it was. So one of the products of the bank, and the bank was called Public Savings Bank, and we bought it in 2006. The FDIC took it away from us 2011. We had a secured credit card, which basically means we were people who had credit problems. They would send the bank $500. We would issue them a Visa for $500. Simple deal. It was very ironic. I had perfect credit. I was very strong financially. And when the global recession hit, it knocked me on my backside. I was dragged out. I was beaten up, bloodied, black eyes, all public humiliations. And I found myself in a position that I couldn't get credit because I had like 40, $50 million in judgments against me. I had to get a secured credit card from another bank. So it was how ironic that I was issuing secured credit cards. I was the owner of a bank one day, and almost the next day, I couldn't get credit, and I had to take a secured credit card from another bank. So, yeah, I really suffered financially. I really did. And it was scary. It took a toll on me. But thank God I have a very supportive wife, tremendous community, tremendous infrastructure. Um, and I had the ability to rebuild myself, to use what I learned and all the life lessons I learned to rebuild myself. And that's what happened. So absolutely, I remember struggling, can't pay bills. I could go on and on about the hardships that I suffered, but conversely, I able to use that as inner strength and muster the strength to rebuild myself safer, stronger, and better than before.
Yeah. I think it's so important for people to understand that it's very rarely a linear path from, wherever we start to whatever we personally perceive success to be today. Everybody has a story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I was actually with a friend of mine and someone I work with last week who's going through hard times now. And I go out of my way. One of the things that happened to me when I got knocked down, I learned to be more compassionate. And it put me in other people's shoes. And coincidentally, there were four or five people didn't I wasn't particularly close to them, but they got me through it by boosting me up. I don't know how, but when I was at my lowest, they would send me a text, like a motivational text. They would send me an email. And these couple guys really are unbelievable. So now whenever I run into someone who's suffering, I really try to help them. So I told this friend of mine yesterday, I told him he knows what I went through, but I said, anyone really successful, they've failed, they've had setbacks. The difference is they had the ability to get back up.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people don't realize, as you said, they think it's linear. They think you keep growing, everything's great. And that may happen to the few guys out there, or gals, the few people. But most people, they go up, they get knocked down, they go up. And anyone who studies business and success knows that. A
Mhm.
lot of the most famous, most successful people, they've got knocked down, but they got back up. So I think it's important for me to try to help people. And when people are down, I go out of my way to help them, do whatever I can to elevate them because they have the ability to. And the truth is, they have more capability knowing that they've been knocked down because they've learned so much from that experience.
Mhm. Yeah. I like to think of it like a new threshold, a new ceiling. It's like we hit a certain level of success, we get knocked down, but the next time that we springboard back up, maybe that was a $100,000 benchmark if I was just to throw some kind of objective number on it. And then next year it's 200,000. You get knocked down, you're only earning 50, you're bankrupt, whatever, but then you springboard up to a 500,000 or 1 million, and it's just learning from each of those unique challenges that are presented to you along the way, as well as how to capitalize on the opportunities to be that much more decisive. And, as to your point, when you get knocked down, how quickly can we get back up? Because it's not a question of if, it's reality is when is things going
Yeah,
to happen.
no, I agree. It's all about the recovery, all about, and people have such potential. And I feel bad that some people don't realize the potential they have. There's such people leave the potential on the table because of self-doubt or whatever reason is. And I want people to really live out their potential more.
hmm Yeah, no, and I love what you said too. I mean, it's really about I found that when I'm having a difficult time, one of the things that helps me get through it, at least now, is to get outside of myself. And I try to ask, how can I focus on other people? What can I do to contribute to somebody else's life? And I think that is an extremely difficult question to ask when it feels like the chips are down and the cards are against you. But I think it's one of the most important things that we can ask, because if we can do it when it's hard, then we're that much more likely to do it when the things are easy and going well and we can contribute on an even higher level.
100%. I happen to be Jewish, and one of the concepts in Jewish is giving to charity. And
Mhm.
it's even more meaningful when you have less to give. If a
Mhm.
billionaire gives to charity, okay. But when you're down and out and you're struggling, when you give to charity, it means more. And God protects you. And I'm a firm believer in that. I've seen it in my life. When I've been down, and even when I'm having a bad day now, I'll give a little more than I normally do. I'll do a little more. I lean out to help other people more. And by doing that, it helps yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's shift gears here for a moment, Jack, and talk a bit about your business, some of your philanthropic aspirations, the things that you're building and creating. So, if you would talk to us a bit about Gelt Financial. What differentiates a non-bank and investment lending from traditional banks? Why would people go that route versus another route? Talk to us a little bit about everything that you do.
Sure. Well, let me talk about Gelt Financial because the truth is I do Gelt Financial and I love it. It's other than my wife and my kids, it's the love of my life. I love business to really get money to help other people. So the charity work I do is the real mission in life, but how I can do it is through Gelt Financial. So I'll talk about Gelt Financial, and then I'll talk about Gelt Charitable. So look, I started Gelt Financial in 1989. We focus on lending money to real estate owners, investors, and owners of small businesses who can't go to a bank or don't want to go to a bank. The reality is there's a certain segment of population who can't go to the bank. Maybe it's credit, maybe they don't verify their income, all kinds of reasons. Banks are tight on credit, they're very tight on lending. There's an old joke, what do the banks lend people money who don't need to borrow money? So we focus on the collateral, and also about 50% of our business can go to a bank, but they need to close quick. Banks are taking a long time. Banks could take months to get a deal done. So if a guy buys a property, I'm making this up, at a sheriff's sale for $200,000, and he needs to close in 5 or 6 days or a week, a bank isn't going to even return his call with that. He'll come to Gelt. Now, Gelt is conservative. I don't sit here and say, oh, we approve every loan. We're conservative. We generally like to lend 65% of the value of the property, and we're more expensive than a bank. So a bank right now is probably 6, 7%, 5 to 7%. In this market, give or take, we're 12%. We're usually 400 or 500 basis points higher than a bank. So I tell people, if you can go to a bank, if you have your documentation order, if you have the time, absolutely go to a bank. Absolutely, are your first choice, no question. But if you don't have the time and you don't have the documentation order, and if you don't have the credit, we're a good alternative.
Hmm. Brilliant.
So
That makes a ton of sense. You're filling a gap in the market and
that's
solving a
exactly
problem for
what we're
people that
doing.
need, speed and are going to have otherwise restrictions that prevent them from the traditional banking system. That's a gift.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of people take our money for a short term, for a bridge loan.
Hmm.
again, they're buying a property, they're getting a good deal. They'll borrow our money, then they'll go to a bank and pay us off.
Hmm. Excellent, excellent. Uh, is there, what are the use cases? I mean, are these typically business owners that you're seeing? Are they leveraging the money for, I mean, is it anything and everything? Like what do
Well,
you, who do you
so
typically work with and why?
we're real estate lenders,
Hmm.
so it's all real estate, and I would say about 80% are real estate investors, and 20% are business owners who own a bakery, a pizza place, anything and everything.
Hmm.
It's a combination, and they're typically using our money to make money with our money
Hmm.
or to get out of trouble.
Hmm.
It's one or the other typically. So
Hmm.
it's a general profile, literally across age groups, sexes, religions, colors, everything. It's a big melting pot of people. The
Yeah.
banks are very difficult to deal with today, and we're pretty easy. We're not a small company, but we're not a big company. So with us, you're always going to speak to a decision maker. It's common sense. There's no underwriting manual, there's no underwriting book, there's no written documentation on our underwriting.
Hmm.
It's all what we call common sense underwriting.
Hmm.
And so we feel like I think you said it, we feel a niche in the market. And there's a lot of people, to be candid with you, who don't want to deal with banks. They can go to a bank, but they would rather deal with us because it's just easier and they'd rather pay us a premium than dealing with a bank. Again, I tell people if you can go to a bank, go to a bank, no question about it. But if you can't, we're a good alternative.
Hmm. That's fascinating. I mean, so any of our listeners that are looking for additional means of cash flow right now and are willing and able to leverage your current properties, it sounds like this could be a great alternative to traditional banking systems. So,
People make money with our money. A
mhm,
perfect example of a deal, I think it's closing in the next couple of days. Someone called up, they're buying a property somewhere and they needed 250,000.
mhm,
They only had like 10% to put down. Again, we're 65% leverage. They wanted 90%. One of my team looked at their personal financial statements, saw they owned a property coincidentally worth about 250 or 300 grand, unencumbered. So Michael went to these people and said, look, really, we need more money down. You can have a choice. We could either lend you X or you don't have to put a penny down. Let us take a lien on the other property. We'll give you what's called a blanket mortgage and we'll close the loan. So in our eyes, it's a 50% leverage deal because we have two properties.
mhm,
In their eyes, they're getting 100% financing
mhm.
because they're buying this property for 250. And by the way, I don't know that it's 250 exactly. I'm sort of making it up, but they think it's worth 450. So in their eyes, they'll pay us a little premium to make a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's what happens a lot, all the time.
I mean, I've got a lot of friends that are in real estate that have done really well. You know, they're brokers, agents, have their own teams, and every one of I know owns multiple doors, and they constantly talk about the power of leveraging the assets you have in order to acquire more assets. It is the game that we play to grow our real estate portfolios, and when you use that money strategically and wisely, it's one of the best ways to leverage those assets. It's just the key is wisdom and strategy. So I like what you're saying.
And a lot of these people, to go back to the title, is a lot of people, this is how they grow. You need capital to grow. That's the reality.
Hmm.
So, so we're out there doing that.
Hmm.
So it works
Are
for
these refinances? Are they HELOCs? Are they different types of bridge like
well,
what do they look
so
like?
we don't do HELOCs, but they're either refinances or purchases
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay.
generally.
Excellent.
And
Cool.
sometimes they're fix and flip. Sometimes we'll lend people money to buy a property to fix it up and sell it. All kinds of stuff. We also buy debt. We also invest in real estate ourselves. So the lending is sort of one side of it, but we also buy debt from other lenders. Sometimes lenders don't know how to deal with non-performing or sub-performing debt. So we have a whole team that buys that debt and we service it. And we're also real estate investors. We either buy properties ourselves or we do JV equity. So someone will find a property, it's a good deal. They don't have the capital, they'll bring it to us. We'll put up the capital and take a piece of the deal.
Hmm. Excellent. Yeah. No, that's an amazing service you're providing. So, I mean, to any of our listeners that need additional capital and resources and have some property to leverage, make sure you guys reach out to Jack and his team at Gelt Financial. I mean, if you want it quicker, easier than a traditional bank, it's definitely the way to go. You know, tell me, Jack. uh, let's talk a little bit about your charitable focuses. I mean, I know you've got some things that are near and dear to your heart that you're really passionate about. I mean, you mentioned at the very beginning, I mean, this stage of life for you is more focused on contribution. How do I give back more? What does that look like? How can our listeners potentially get involved?
Yeah,
What inspired this back in the beginning? Talk to us more about that.
I appreciate it. I'm so passionate about this. I just love talking about it. So I've always been the kind of person who cares about other people. And I've always been very charitable and tried to help as many people as I can along the way. And with age and success, one of the rewards is you can do it more. So as the years go on, I'm spending more and more of my time and focus on helping people. I'm a firm believer that everyone is born with unique talents. And if whoever it is has talents because God, and I don't want to get into religion too much, but it's the whole heart of me. God wants them to be on this planet, and He wants him or her to be on this planet for a specific purpose. And if they don't use out their purpose, it's defeating it. So I encourage people. So, I really try to focus on helping other people, and we do it in many ways. A number of years, I got involved with suicide prevention. Thank God I've never experienced it personally. To be blunt, I didn't know how prevalent it was, and it's an epidemic now. It's the number, I think that the second or third leading cause of deaths in our teens, our youth. It's just all over the place. Every couple days you hear about a high profile person sadly doing this. We got involved with that. We started to prepare suicide prevention workshops. I think we've educated probably 30 or 40,000 people on suicide prevention and how to help other people. We even trained, believe it or not, I think it was like a year before COVID, the Boston Fire Department brought our team in to train. I think there was 10,000, 12,000 first responders on suicide prevention and how do you deal with mental health on the field. And I give them tremendous credit because a lot of the police stations and a lot of the first responders don't want to deal with it, but we train the Boston Fire Department. Our team's dealing with college campuses every day, young girls, young guys, old, every age group you can imagine. And we're trying to deal with mental health, very tough issue. And I hope you don't say, how do you solve it? I don't know. I feel like we're just putting Band-Aids on it, but we're providing comfort to them. I forget the number of calls that we get every year, but an unbelievable amount of calls to our hotline.
Mhm.
And it was originally done under the Gelt Charitable Foundation, but we spun it off. I'll use the word spin off. We started a separate nonprofit called the Long Short Road, which is run by one of the most talented people and caring people I know, Lee Offey, who originally started with the Gelt Charitable Foundation. So we're on the front lines of mental health and suicide prevention. And this is prevalent in our armed forces. Sadly, the United States Armed Forces is losing more people or taking their lives than in wars, literally since World War II. No, I'm sorry, since the Vietnam War.
In that are currently active in the military, or is it post?
Active, yeah, I think the number is 22 a day. Active military are sadly taking their own lives. So, the chances are, during this conversation, very sadly, we're losing someone because of it.
Yeah.
And,
You know,
and
what makes me curious, Jack, you had said, how do we solve this? I don't have a clue. One of the questions that popped into my mind is, what is the I don't know if you have any data on what is the driver, what is the impetus, like what is the thing that these individuals are battling that, I mean, do they state the why? I mean, are they most often experiencing some kind of financial trouble? Is it a more emotional where, they don't have, they're in the wrong circles and like they don't have the right people
yeah,
around them to support? Like I'm, I know I'm
first of
grasping at
all,
straws, but I'm curious if
I
there's any
have to a
answer.
disclosure to you and your audience. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a
Sure.
psychiatrist. I never went to school for this.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm just a guy.
Hmm.
Okay, who's trying to help. but it's all of the above. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's mental health. The reality is we don't have a good mental health system in this country.
Mhm.
We don't have systems to deal with it. The infrastructure is not there. The country needs to deal with it. And again, I don't want to get political. I think this will solve a lot of the mass shootings and the other things. A lot can be traced back to mental health.
Mhm.
But to some of it, it's the online bullying. It's
Mhm.
when I'm 63. When I was a kid, they used to make fun of me at school for having a big nose and being Jewish. So they used to call me Nose the Jew, whatever. But you moved on, whatever. But today, they're posting things online with thousands and millions of people seeing it. It's not good. These young girls are going to college campuses, unbelievable amounts of them, and guys too have eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, anxiety, all kinds of issues because of the pressure. You put on TV, you go on any of your social media accounts, you see people who look perfect. Their bodies are perfect, their faces are perfect. No one goes on Facebook and say, I had a lousy day. I hate my boss. I hate my life. I can't take it anymore. I'm ready to cry. What do they post? Their fantastic meals, their vacations, their cars. We live in this fake world. It's hard to keep up. Even pornography, it's all over the place. But even when you watch, again, I don't want to get, when you watch pornography, real people don't perform like that. Real
Mhm.
people don't perform like that. So we live in this culture. So it's a lot that it's mental, it's all kinds of things. But
Mhm.
I believe we as a society need to deal with it
Mhm.
because almost everyone I know has someone close to them who has mental illness or suffering from something. Again, I don't know you. We spoke for about 5 minutes before this conversation. I'm guessing someone, and I don't want an answer, but someone in your family, you could think of friends who have issues. Everyone has issues. And
Mhm.
if you don't think they have issues, it's behind closed doors. Everyone's suffering.
Yep. No,
Everyone's
it's
suffering.
it's 100% true. And there's a couple things that come to mind. I mean, comparison is the thief of joy today. And that's the biggest thing is people are constantly, consciously or unconsciously comparing themselves to others and thinking, I wish I had that. And the reality is, until we can learn to be, one of the greatest dichotomies in life is, the pursuit of something greater while being content with what we have now.
Yeah,
Like,
a
you know.
100%. So very hard issue. And people don't want to, when I first started to get involved, people didn't want to talk about it. It was like taboo. You could talk to them about sports, the weather, anything in the world. You bring up mental health or suicide prevention, they'd run the other way. But
Mhm.
now, thank God, it's getting a little more socially acceptable to talk about.
Yep.
Along with that, we're very active in the PSTD world.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, a lot of people have PSTD,
Mhm.
who or wars or whatever. And to be blunt, I want to be very candid. I thought I had it at one time. So when I went through my troubles, I just gave you a snapshot at it, but it was unbelievable. I was in legal and business hell for like 5 years. I
Yeah.
don't think I slept more than an hour for 5 years, 20
Yeah.
minutes at a time. The pressure was unbelievable.
Mhm.
A couple years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, my wife and I are watching, I don't know, 2020 or 60 Minutes, one of these shows about guys who came back from the Iran-Iraq war who were suffering from PSTD.
Mhm.
Before this, I really didn't know much about it. During one of the commercials, I looked at my wife and I said, I have that. She looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I didn't, no one was shooting bullets at me, no RPGs, nothing bad, but I had it from my circumstances. And I
A
still,
100%. People
I
do
still,
not understand
yeah,
PTSD. If there is any trauma in your life, and we always associate it, I mean, like a majority of people associate it with times of war and things along those natures or severe car accidents or whatever the thing is. But any kind of trauma in your life, be it emotional, be it physical, in any context, will create the opportunity for PTSD to become something that you battle. So I wholeheartedly agree that that time of your life could very have well been something that you were
And
struggling with consciously, unconsciously.
100%, and I've learned I control it. It doesn't take over my life, but absolutely I have it today. Again, it's a long time ago. I dealt with it, never on medication. Time heals wounds, but it's in the back of my head. And once in a while, something will pop up. I'm started.
Mhm.
So we pay, and unfortunately, the government doesn't do a good job of helping these people. So we actually pay for some veterans who aren't serving. I think we're up to 19 now a week to go for weekly therapy and sessions, whatever. Hopefully, it's doing good. You know,
Amazing.
but again, that's all in the mental health arena.
Hmm.
Also, I'm very passionate about criminal justice reform. Another issue that people aren't talking about, and I really didn't this, what happens is none of these things were on my radar. Prior to 2011, if you would have talked to me about in 2010 about criminal justice reform, I had no idea. I didn't know it was an issue. 2011, because I saw what happened when the government went after me, I was woken up to it and I started to get involved. Our criminal justice reform may be the best in the world, but it's far from perfect. And there's a lot of people who have been caught up in it, and it destroys their life. There's about 1 million people incarcerated in the U.S. now, and estimated about 5% of them, which is 50,000 people, the size of a city, are not guilty, that are
Yep.
innocent and shouldn't be there. The
Yep.
way the government plays the game and the prosecutors play the game, they really force you to do a plea deal. And a
A
lot of people
hundred
wind up
percent. Mm-hmm.
pleading to things, including me, that they 100% weren't guilty of, just because they'll threaten you with so much.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about criminal justice reform. We need to do it. I support the Olive Group, which is a fantastic group that deals with that. We've done so much in this area, and again, people don't like to talk about it. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're helping criminals? I'm not helping criminals. I'm helping people who aren't criminals who get caught up in it. And the problem is, once you're caught up in it, you're branded with a scarlet letter F for the rest of your life. I
Yeah.
forget the exact number, but I think it's about 50 million people in the US who have criminal records. I think about 25%, maybe that's not the right number. Someone will Google it and they'll correct me. But I think about 25% of the people have been caught up in this system. I'm not saying they're all innocent,
Mhm.
but you have to use it. We have this philosophy in the US, just throw them in jail, just throw them in jail. That's not the way to do it. Again, jail, I believe, should be reserved for the few violent, heinous people. There's other way to throw people to deal with it, to rehabilitate them. Because when you throw a father in jail, what happens to the wife? What happens to the kids?
Most often not, it's resources. I mean, think about like
Oh,
the number of people in jail that are did they ever have the opportunity to be served 3 meals a day, have a roof over their head, be able to exercise and a workout schedule? I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but for some people, it's actually more of a blessing to be in jail than it is to be back out on the street. And to your point, our system, I mean, I know I'm friends with several lawyers. I know one in particular that comes to mind who started out as a prosecutor. And after 10 years in prosecution, he shifted, opened his own criminal defense firm, which he's been in for over 20 years now. And he said it's been the greatest gift because, and the whole thing that motivated him to do it was our system is so backwards. To your point, he goes, it is not innocent until proven guilty. It is guilty until proven innocent. And to your point, they stack all of these charges on you and then try to basically force you to either have to take it to court, which most people can't afford to do if they're trying to do it with a good, a legal representation, and or they're now gambling with the entirety of their lives, so they're forced into taking a plea deal of what was a felony to a misdemeanor or maybe a lower class with some kind of probation periods or whatever, and you're destroying people's lives.
and you're destroying the fabric of the community. And
Yeah.
the government has like a conviction rate of 99%. You can't win against the government because like you say, they stack it and they don't care. They destroy your lives. They could not care less. It's a very uncompassionate
Hmm.
system. So I'm very, and the Innocence Project does great work on this. There's a lot of good things. I'm really hoping that this under this president gets legs and we could start to address the criminal justice system because that's absolutely huge. I
Yeah.
also spend a good amount of time on what I call combating hate. The reality is, and again, by the way, all these problems, my wife tells me I'm never going to solve. I'm never going to solve them. But I just feel there's a concept in my religion. Our job isn't to solve them. We do the best we can. All we
Yeah.
can do is the best we can. The reality is there's way too much hate in this country
Mm.
and the world, in the world, whether it be people of color, people of different religion, people of different sizes, shapes, anything. It's very easy to hate. And hate, it comes from ignorance, and then people get scared, and then it becomes violent. And think of how many people have been killed or maimed in hate, religious wars, World War II, 24 million people died alone. And hate really destroys, and it's prevalent, unfortunately, in our college campuses. Unfortunately, and we've seen it the past couple of years. So I'm very focused on how do we combat hate. Because the truth is, if you hate one kind of person, I'm next. I'm next. We're all next. So it's very easy to hate, but we have to figure out how we can combat hate and get people to really get along and stop this hate. Because
Dude,
this,
it's so simple, I think, fundamentally. At least it's easy to say. But the reality is, I mean, I think about this all the time. When we're one of the biggest struggles in this country is polarization. And it's not the fact that we disagree on something, it's how we disagree with one another. You can disagree from a place of contempt and anger and hatred. You're right, I'm wrong, black and white, whatever. Or you can get curious and you can try to understand the other person's position and you can disagree with them, but you can also do it from a place of respect. And the problem has become this massive polarization, the left versus the right, the liberals versus the conservatives, the what it doesn't matter. You can create any frame that you want, but the simple thing is, if we just started, if we just exercise the muscle of curiosity and tried to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, even just for a moment, you will dramatically de-escalate any situation just by showing that you actually care, that you are willing to hear somebody else's position and what is leading them that way. It's not avoiding the conversation. It's not speaking to it head on, at least from a combative standpoint. It's compassion, curiosity, and understanding, and then making an educated decision to stand behind one of those beliefs, but in a way that is not driving more division. And I know that's, like, to me at least, an
no,
simplification of
no,
things,
look,
but
I agree 100%. I have a philosophy on politics in the US, and it's obviously very hateful, this area. I personally believe that most people in the US have very similar goals and desires and beliefs. If you listen to the media, we're so divided, we're polarized, and we are. But I think most people want you and me, or whoever, I think we could probably agree on 90% of everything. I think the polarization is driven by two things. One, the media who makes money from it and power. And two, the political parties who stay in business because of it. So
yeah.
they're really driving the polarization. But I think if we neutralize those two, and you can't, most people agree on most things. You may disagree on this, I may disagree on this, but we all want to live in freedom. We all want to have better lives for each other. We all want, if someone's sick, they should be treated. No one wants to live in crime. So I think most people agree on most issues, but this polarization, which is driven by the media and the political parties, are dividing it. And that's how they stay in business and make money. And that's why I believe you're seeing these extremists on both sides, because that fuels the donations. And it's so expensive to run for office, they need to get them the money, and that's how they do it.
It's interesting. I was reading or watching a video on this subject recently, and somebody posited something that I'd never really considered. I mean, they said, how do you take down a world superpower? And they said, the best way to do it, you confuse the masses, you create division amongst communities,
So what's
you
happening?
pit the country against itself through the educational system, through the media, and you just watch it eat itself from the inside out. And I'm like, holy shit, this is exactly what we are seeing today. I mean, it was a very, very enlightening notion. Jack, this has been an incredible conversation today. There's multiple takeaways. One, I love what you said about the transformation, the way you looked at things. It's like I'm still learning, but I'm also focusing on it's not about the money anymore. At least is that predominant focus. It's like money is the vehicle that drives the charity work that you are now doing, and you're contributing to several very necessary things in today's world. And I love that it wasn't just one, that you're passionate about so many. I like that you talked about recovery. You mentioned it was something you mentioned in the beginning, like it's really about who you surround yourself with. And then also when we're having a difficult time, a great opportunity to pull yourself from that is to be a light in someone else's life. Give when it's the hardest. And I think that's a really important lesson. And I love what you said about everybody has unique talents. We're all here for a specific purpose, a reason, a why, and a life fulfilled is a life that is lived in pursuit of that thing. So again, Jack, this has been an incredible conversation. We're from real estate to mindset to philanthropic opportunities. I know our listeners are walking away with a deeper sense of what it means to win the long game. For those who want to follow your journey or connect with you directly, where's the best place to find you, Jack?
Gelt, you can go to geltfinancial.com. We're on all the social media platforms, LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, it's H. Jack Miller. You can follow me there, Twitter. We're on all the social media platforms, and reach out. I love to help people.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jack. Again, that's geltfinancial.com, the social media platforms. And to our listeners, you guys know we'll make sure that we have all the links in the descriptions and such below, so it'll be easy to find Jack and get more information. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Perpetual Growth Podcast. And remember, success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. Thank you for joining me again today, Jack.